Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jade. I have a very exciting video today. I thought I would recommend some books using a book recommendation tag. The person who made up this tag is Steph Bohr, so I'll link her video down below. I'm sure people know who she is. So I want to go ahead and say, don't forget to hit like, don't forget to subscribe. I do a lot of book videos, book vlogs, stuff like that. So if you want to see more of that, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. So we're going to get on into it because I have a ton of books here with me to recommend, and I figured let's quit talking. Let's get on with the video. So the first question that I have today is a book you tell people is your favorite. So whenever people ask me my favorite book, I always tell them Funny Story About Emily Henry. I feel like it's safe, it's easy, it's quick. If you hear any noise in the background, both of my dogs are with me. So if you hear like jingling, any just noises like that, that's what it is. But back to what I was saying, I feel like Funny Story About Emily Henry is just very easy for me to recommend to people. People who are non-readers, like family members, friends who are non-readers, even people who do read. I feel like Emily Henry is such a good introduction author because of the way she writes, the characters that she writes, the experiences. I feel like everything is really relatable, and this one's especially my favorite. So whenever I recommend anything, I always say Emily Henry is a great author. My favorite though, Funny Story About Emily Henry. So basically what Funny Story is about is this girl named Daphne, her fiance breaks off their engagement because he realizes that he's actually in love with his childhood best friend, Petra. So Daphne now no longer has a fiance, no longer has a house. She does not have anywhere to live. But what she realizes is that Petra also broke up with her boyfriend in order to get with Daphne's ex-fiance. So she ends up moving in with Petra's ex-boyfriend, Miles, because she figured, hey, at least there's space. We both know we're both going through the same thing. Maybe this is the person to be around right now. So at first they would avoid each other just because it was a very weird situation that they were in. But then one day they get drunk and then they just form a friendship, an unlikely friendship. And through that friendship, they, of course, slowly start falling in love. But I absolutely loved this book. It was so funny. The predicaments that they would get themselves into. I love Daphne as her character, seeing her go through the motions with what's happening, also getting, not like accepting it, and also her job. Her job is such a very big part of this plot, and figuring out what she wants in her life, as well as just falling in love with Miles. It was such a fun time. This is absolutely my favorite book by Emily Henry, and if I would have to recommend any Emily Henry book, it would be this one. And this is also the book that I also tell people when they ask me, what's your favorite book? This one, because I feel like it's not super crazy. It's not like fantasy and all the smut that comes with that. So this one. The second question on the list is a book that is your guilty pleasure. So I actually have two of these. My first one is Reckless by Elsie Silver. I feel like this one's my guilty pleasure because it is like just such a romance book. Like there's everything that comes with the romance book, and it's very character driven. And this one's my favorite from Elsie Silver overall, but also within this series, there's a bunch of interconnected standalones. I believe there's like 5 books, and it follows a group of brothers and them finding love. And so this one is the third or the fourth book in the Chestnut Springs series, and that is Reckless by Elsie Silver. I said that Chestnut Springs follows a group of brothers. I think there's 3 brothers. Yeah, there's 3 brothers and then a cousin, and then like one of the brothers is protege in the bull riding world. So this follows Theo Silva and Winter Hamilton. And basically what happens is Winter, her sister Summer, is actually the character in our first book of the series. I can't remember the name, but I'll put a picture of it right here. And in that book, we figure out that Winter is like super opposite of Summer. Literally, she's mean, she's dark, she is not very like warm and welcoming. She is the epitome of what the winter season is. And so this is her book, and she ends up having a one-night stand with Theo Silva, which is the best friend of Summer's husband, Rhett, I believe. She has a one-night stand with Theo, and they do their thing, and then they go their separate ways. They aren't planning to actually stay together because Winter, like stuff in her life that's going on, Theo has stuff in his life going on. They know that this is not the time for them to be in a relationship at all whatsoever. They go their separate ways. couple weeks later, Winter finds out that she's pregnant. And so that's basically the start of this story. And it was so good. I absolutely love this one. It's my favorite one. The story between Winter and Theo, and how Theo really just helps Winter through her, I don't want to say mental issues, but she's been told all her life certain things, and some stuff has happened to her back in the day, and Theo helps her go through that and accept that and acknowledge that and just deal with it. And I love their relationship. I loved how Theo is just her person. Again, Winter has never been the type of person to have so many friends, because she is very just hard-headed and stubborn and in her ways, and she felt very isolated from her friends and family, and Theo helps her just be herself and figure out who she is, and their relationship was just so amazing, and I loved everything about this book. My second guilty pleasure book is In a Jam by Kate Canterbury. I don't have a copy of this book because I read it on my Kindle, but I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars, and I feel like this is my guilty pleasure because there's nothing that was just so perfect about this book. It was just another romance book, but for whatever reason, I guess the stars were aligned or something, because at the time that I read it, it was exactly what I was looking for, and it was just so perfect. It checked all the boxes, and I gave it 5 stars, which I kind of try to not that I don't want to give books 5 stars, but I try to be a little picky, because I just feel like that is just perfection, right? 5 stars is absolutely perfect. A book has to be perfect, and I sometimes always kind of nitpick at things, but I try not to, but unfortunately I do. But for this book, In a Jam, I was like, no, this is everything 5 stars. In a Jam is about this girl. Her name is Shay. She moves out of her small town. She lives a life in the big city, and she's engaged. She has her own job, her own money, but then her grandmother dies. Her grandma left her tulip farm, and Shay gets it, all 100% of it, under 2 conditions. So the first condition is that she has to move back home to the town of Friendship, which is where she grew up, and 2, she has to be married, which, okay, moving back home, check, easy. Being married is going to be a bit tougher because she just got broken up with by her fiance. And so then this is where we introduce our male main character. His name is Noah. He was in love with Shay back in high school. He never got around to telling her though. And when she moved away, he was devastated. But now Noah is a single father. Shay moves back home to the town of Friendship, and he realizes maybe this is the time that he should tell Shay that he loves her. This one was really fun because I remember loving Noah and Shay separately. I love their characters separately, but then when they were together, it was so fun. I would check the trigger warnings for this one just because there is grief, there's mentions of parental deaths and all that. So if that's something that you are a bit iffy on, I would check the trigger warnings. So the third question is a book everyone loved but you didn't. I actually have a few books to talk about in this question, so we're gonna get started. So our first one is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I'm not gonna say that I didn't love this book, but I feel like when I was reading the Part of Your World trilogy, which is Part of Your World, Love Truly, and this one, Just for the Summer, everyone was hyping up Just for the Summer, that I thought it was going to be this amazing, most beautiful book ever, and not that it just wasn't my favorite, which I was expecting it to be. My favorite though out of that 3 trilogy was Yours Truly. So I think because I read Yours Truly, absolutely fell in love with it. I related to our male main character so much when in regards to his anxiety and how he thinks and how he is around people, and just reading about his anxiety and his symptoms and how he feels and his feelings on it. I related to that so much. That was literally me. I saw myself in his character so much that I was like, oh my gosh, I feel seen. This is me. This is what all these feelings I haven't been able to articulate, or that probably sound dumb to other people, is just right here in this book. And I cannot believe that someone wrote something so similar to myself. So I think after reading Yours Truly, just really connecting with one of our characters, and just also loving the story and the romance on the side of it, reading Just for the Summer did not live up to the hype that I thought it was going to live up. So it's not that I hated this book, it's just that I didn't love it as much as other people loved it, but I still really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 3.5 or 4 stars, which is a lot, which is high for me. So I'm gonna read the synopsis for just for the summer, and I looked and I also gave it 4 stars. So it says, Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up so that they will both find their soulmates afterwards. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island in Lake Minnetonka. It's supposed to be a quick fling just for the summer, but when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings for each other. What if this time fate has actually brought the perfect pair together? So again, it was such a good book. It was not my favorite. It did not live up to the hype, in my opinion, that a bunch of other like book talkers and booktubers were expressing. And again, I think for that reason is because I loved Yours Truly so much, and I had read it a couple of books before just for the summer. So whenever I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to have to be so much better than Yours Truly, and it wasn't, but it was still good. So the next book in this question is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. So I know that this might be a little ridiculous because I think that this is most people's favorite out of the trilogy, but I actually did not like this book really at all. I think the only thing I liked was our male main character, Wes. I loved reading about him and his kids and him being with like all of the friends that we meet in the Rose Hill series, because this is book 2 of an interconnected standalones, also by Elsie Silver. When I read this, I was also fighting a book slump. So I don't know if that is the reason for my dislike, but I also remember reading this and just hating our female main character. I thought she was annoying. I did not connect with her at all. I remember just when I would read her chapters, because it's dual POV, when I would read her chapters, I would be skimming the words because I found myself not caring. And again, the reason for this might be because I was fighting a book slump. I ended up finishing it. I think I gave it 2, no, not 2. I think I gave it 3 stars. But whenever people say that they loved Wild Eyes, I'm like, ooh, I did not like that one. This one's my least favorite out of the 3. Unwarranted, but my ranking for this trilogy so far, I think there's going to be one more book in it, is Wild Side, Wild Love, and then Wild Eyes. So this one was my just least favorite out of the trilogy so far, and which I think is weird because I've just seen so many people love it. So this book is about our female main character. Her name is Skylar. She's a very famous singer, Skylar Stone. Well, she ends up feeling a bit overwhelmed and just burnt out with the singing and the going on stage and all that. So she decides to reside in the small town of Rose Hill, which is where a new record studio is. So she decides while she records some music at this record studio, she's gonna also live here for the time being and just calm down a bit. So that's where she meets Weston. He is a single father and he is best friends with the owner of the recording studio, and they are also next door neighbors. If I believe correctly, Skylar is living in his guest house on his property. So that's where their story starts. It's obviously a romance, so their love is going to bloom for one another, and that's who we follow throughout the book, Weston and Skylar. So my next book that seems like everyone loved but I didn't was The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I will say that this book was so addicting. I could not put it down. I basically read it in 2 sittings. It was so addictive. I needed to know what was going to happen with our characters. But a big thing that made me dislike this book is that it just gave me so much anxiety, which sounds so dumb, but it did. I needed to know what happened, but I found myself skipping a few pages to the end just to make sure that our characters were all, I don't know, okay. Miraculously, I did not spoil anything for myself. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was okay. But again, no spoilers. I don't know how I did not spoil this book for myself because I was constantly going back and forth between where I was and then the end just to get little glimpses because my anxiety was so high. This book was dramatic. It was messy. It was just so crazy. And I could not handle it, evidently. This one's about 2 figure skaters that grew up together, and we read about them over the span of oh gosh, maybe 20 or 30 years. And it's very character driven. We see it all through our main character. Her name is Katerina, I think. That was true. Her name is Katerina. And it's just, so we read about Kat and Heath, which is her childhood best friend, her childhood love. And we read about them throughout the course of the book. Again, it's like 20 or 30 years. And I could not handle the angst and the drama and the messiness that this book is. But if you like any of that, then I would definitely recommend this book for you. It was so messy, and my anxiety was through the roof while reading this. We're just basically reading about Kat's journey to an Olympic gold medal. But finally, when she gets to the Olympics, something shocking happens, and her and Heath drop off the face of the earth. Now she's telling her story for the first time and what exactly happened at that Olympics, and that is this book. In between the chapters, there are interview format, but each chapter is regular paragraphs and words. It's just only in between those we do get interview formats from other characters that are expressing their opinions about Kat and Heath. Heath is her Olympic skating partner, and again, he is like her childhood best friend, her childhood love, her first love, all that. So we follow Kat, and within the course of that, Heath is going to be there because he was there with her throughout her whole life. But I feel like with character-driven books in that way, where it's not typically a romance book, it's more of like a contemporary fiction and it's more real life. I tend to not like those books because they do give me such bad anxiety. Because again, I'm such a hopeless romantic. I am a reader, and I read for the escapism, to escape reality, all that. And so whenever I read contemporary fiction or literary fiction that is real world problems, it makes my anxiety just shoot through the roof, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that there's probably a chance that there's not going to be a happy ending at the end of this book. So that's like a large reason why I did not like the favorites. Okay, so lastly for this question, oh my gosh, a little controversial. Happy Place by Emily Henry. I was so annoyed. This is the whole reason why I did not like Happy Place, is because I was a bit annoyed. First of all, let me say what Happy Place is about. So it's about our two main characters, Harriet and Wynn. They are college sweethearts. They are engaged. They are in love, and they have the same friend group. Because they've known each other since college, all of their college friends are their friends. Like, they do not have friends outside of their friend group. Every summer they go to one of their friends' cottage in Maine to stay with everybody and just hang out and feel like their college days again. Except this time is a little different because Harriet and Wynn broke up about 5 or 6 months ago. And they didn't tell anybody. They didn't tell any of their friends. So they're going back to this cottage like they do every year, and they're going to have to pretend that they're still together because they didn't tell anybody, and they don't want to break to their friends the fact that they broke up and kept it from all of them. So that's what this whole book is about. That's what we're following. We're following Harriet and Wynn just pretending to be together while also dealing with the fact that they had not seen each other since they broke up. So they're dealing with the breakup while also still pretending to be together. And it's, again, I wouldn't say it's super messy, not like the favorites, but it is a bit complicated, and that's this book. So if you like that little bit of drama, messiness, but also romance, and they're kind of like, oh, maybe there's still something here. There's also stuff happening outside of their little duo. There's stuff happening within the friend group. And so this one's also very, very, very character driven, and we have just a bunch of stuff happening within our characters. So if you like something like that, then this is the book for you. Again, the reason why I just didn't love it was because I was so annoyed by there's just this huge trope. The miscommunication trope was happening all throughout this book, and just every single avenue, every single plot that we were dealing with, and I could not get over that. I hate when that happens. I was like, if everyone just sat down at the dining room table in the little house and just talked, book would have ended on chapter 2. And so I could not get over that fact. I was so annoyed because of that. I was like, everyone just needs to sit down and have a long talk together. And we were avoiding it. And that is what made me dislike the book. I hope no one gets angry about that. I have some things to say about this next one. Actually, probably not a lot of stuff to say about it. So a next book that everyone loved but I didn't was Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I will say I enjoyed this one a little bit because I did end up reading the second book, and that's a whole different story. But I feel like I remember just feeling like everything was so low stakes. The ending was so anticlimactic. Our problems throughout the book were like, they were problems, but I feel like the way that our characters were going about it and talking about it, I was like, I feel like this is very low stakes. And even at the end, it just ended so abruptly. It felt like we were going, and then we just dropped off. And I was like, wait, what? And so I ended up reading the second book, and it picks up exactly where our first book lets off. It's just, again, in that one, I feel like it was just so low stakes. Nothing was happening. I don't know where I was, but a lot of people loved this series, and I was just like, what are we doing? I do not know. That's a full sentence. I do not know. It does make me sad because, like I said, a lot of people really love this book and love this series. I don't understand what the hype is about. I also feel like our main character was very annoying because there's like a love triangle. There's not really a love triangle. We know who she's going to end up with. I think that's why. It's because we know who she was going to end up with. And yet our author was just dragging it out. And she dragged it out in the second book. I keep forgetting to say what the book is about. So I'm going to read the synopsis for Spark of the Everflame. When old secrets catch fire, everything will burn. In a mortal world colonized by the gods and ruled over by the Descended, their cruel offspring, Diane Bellator yearns to escape the insular life of her poor village. Her mother's sudden disappearance and the discovery of a dangerous secret about her past offer Diane an unexpected opportunity to enter the dark world of Descended royalty and unlock the web of mysteries her mother left behind. With the dying king's handsome, mysterious heir watching her every move, and a ruthless mortal alliance recruiting her to join the growing civil war, Diane will have to navigate the unwritten rules of love, power, and politics in order to save her family and all of mortal kind. It's an enemies to lovers fantasy world, royalty, stuff like that. So if that's something for you, I definitely would say give it a try. Of course, all of my opinions are my own. Take what I say with a grain of salt, of course, always. So our next prompt is a book you read the fastest, and that is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So this book follows Lucy. She lives in California, but before California, she was born and raised in Texas. She was married. She had a best friend and a community back in her Texas town. Her best friend's name was Savvy. Savvy was loved by everybody. It was said that wherever Lucy was, Savvy was. Wherever Savvy was, Lucy was. They were like the golden girls of their town. Well, one day after a party, Lucy is found wandering the roads in her town, bloody, and she's not really all the way there. She's not talking. She's unresponsive. She's just wandering, covered in blood. They later find Savvy brutally murdered off a side road in the backwoods, and everyone believes that Lucy did it. But of course, there was no evidence, so Lucy ends up moving away to get away from all the whispers and rumors and all the people talking about how Lucy murdered her best friend, the golden girl of the town, the social butterfly that everyone loved, Savvy. So Lucy does not remember a thing about that night. She is now living in LA. She's no longer married. She doesn't really speak to anybody from back home, save for like a couple of people. But it's because most people, even some of her family members, believe that she murdered Savvy. So it seems like everyone who is not from the town has forgotten about this unsolved murder until this podcast, Listen for the Lie, and its host, Ben Owens, bring it back to life. And he is trying to get Lucy to not admit that she killed Savvy, but just talk about the murder and what happened that night for the first time ever. And that's basically where the story goes. This, just like the favorites, it has parts of the book where it is written in regular book format, but in between some of the chapters, you do get an interview format because it's like you're listening to the podcast. So it's podcast in written form, which I thought was a very fun idea, a breath of fresh air whenever you're reading a book and it has a new concept in it, which isn't really a new concept. Daisy Jones and the Six has that. We saw that the favorites have that, but it was fun to read it in a thriller mystery book. And because someone killed Savvy and someone who killed Savvy's in this book, and so you have to quote unquote listen for the lie. I could not put that book down. I needed to know what happened. It's just like your typical thriller where someone dies and we do not know what happened, and so as we're moving on, we're slowly figuring out, we're getting hints, and our author is dropping little Easter eggs. And so I needed to know what happened to Savvy, and that is why I could not put down the book. It was so fast paced, so thrilling, so like digestible. It's very easy to read, and I feel like if you need something quick and easy and just super interesting to get you back into reading, if you're like slowly slipping into a book slump, Listen for the Lie by Emmy Tintera is the perfect book for that. So our next prompt is a book that deserves more hype. I have two for this, and our first book is Dear Edward by Ian Napolitano. Is that how you say it? I don't know. So this book follows 12-year-old Edward. Him and his family are moving from, I believe, New York to California, and they're flying cross country to make that move when all of a sudden the plane crashes and everyone dies except Edward, including his parents and his older brother. Because Edward, a 12-year-old boy, was the lone survivor of this horrific plane crash, it really just captures the attention of the whole world, and people are now looking at Edward with sorrow. They want answers because, you know, family members and friends of the people on the flight are like trying to contact Edward and saying like, do you remember this person? How were they like in their last moments of life? And it's insane because Edward is our lone survivor, so he's dealing with the grief and the depression and the guilt of being the only one, not within that whole plane that survives, but also only one in his family that survives. And so we follow Edward throughout the course of, I want to say like 7 or 8 years, with him dealing with his grief and just all of the PTSD that comes with surviving such a horrific event. I love Dear Edward. It was so just heart-wrenching and so profound, and I felt like the story flowed really well. I feel like it was pretty fast-paced. Edward is one of those characters where you just connect with instantly. You have a connection with him and you just feel for him, and you feel as if he's like someone that you know, if that makes sense. I don't know. And so reading throughout the whole book, and you're reading through his journey of not only, again, dealing with this horrible, tragic event, but he's 12 years old, and we're reading over the course of like 6 or 7 years. And so we're reading about him growing up and like falling in love and all of these things that come with coming of age. But of course, he has this huge shadow looming over him. And so I felt like it was just a pretty heart-wrenching, gutting story that was beautifully written and just perfectly executed. So my next book in this prompt is Metal Slinger by Rachel Schneider. This book was absolutely crazy. I did not see any of the plot twists coming. I read it like in one day. I needed to know what happened, and I feel like this book is so good. It deserves more hype. In this story, Aloha is like this island nation that got banished from Kenta. Like their people are not allowed to travel back and forth to Kenta because of something that happened in their history. Every, I think 3 years, something like that, where every year a group of people from Aloha get to go to Kenta to go to this huge market fair that they have from that a bunch of different nations also come to. And Bryn is one of those people, and she's so excited to go. It's her first time going to Kenta. It's her first time leaving Aloha, and she is just really excited for the opportunity. While there, some stuff happens and they accidentally break a centuries-long treaty of peace between their countries. So now there is war on the horizon. Bryn has unfortunately had a part in that, so they have to flee Kenta, and when they return to Aloha, she has to deal with the aftermath of what happened while she was there. I'm not going to give too much away about this book because I feel like if you go into it blind, it hits a bit harder. It is like forced proximity, enemies to lovers, and I feel like this is just really crazy. The second book hasn't even been announced yet. Like, we do not know when the release date of the second book is going to happen. I think we do have a title. If we do, I'm going to put it right here. But this was absolutely crazy. I feel like no one has read this book. No one that I know has read this book. And so I remember finishing it and I was like, oh my gosh, I have no one to talk to about this book. So I went to my mom and I explained to her everything, and then I told her what happened, and I was like, isn't that crazy? And she was like, yeah, that's crazy. And I was like, okay. So our next prompt is a book that is becoming a TV show, and that is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Let me first say what this book is about. It's about two sisters who live in Nazi-occupied France during World War II. One sister is a bit complacent towards the Nazis. She tries to lay low. She doesn't really express her opinions on how bad the Nazis are, and she is just very complacent when it comes to dealing with them. Whereas her younger sister, she tries everything in her power to rebel against the Nazis in whatever way she can. Again, we're in France, so she ends up joining the French resistance, much to her sister's dismay, and that's where our story takes off. We follow both sisters all throughout this book, and it's heart-wrenching, gutting. I was sobbing beginning, middle, end. There was not any rest time. There was no downtime in terms of emotional happenings. So go into this with a box of tissues right next to you. The back of the book says it is a heartbreakingly beautiful novel that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit and the durability of women. That is becoming a TV show, or no, a movie, I believe. I looked it up and there has really been no news lately on it, so hopefully it is still happening. I know that the Fanning sisters were casted as the sisters in the book, so if you don't know who they are, I'll put their pictures up here. But if it does come to light, I feel like they are the perfect people to play these characters. Their acting skills are so amazing, they're so talented, and I feel like they could really do justice to this book and our characters. So next prompt is a book that I have reread the most, and that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I don't even think I need to explain what The Hunger Games is about, but I've read this book 4 times. It never gets old. Truly, it never gets old. I love this book series so much. When Sunrise on the Reaping came out, I dropped everything. It was in the middle of finals, I believe, and I did not care. I read that book in a day, and I was sobbing by the end of it. I am so excited for the movie. I love these books. I love these movies with my whole heart, and if this is the sign that you need to hop on the bandwagon and read The Hunger Games, do it. You're not going to be wasting your time. You're not going to regret it. This is your sign. You should go read them. Matter of fact, hit like, hit subscribe, and then stop the video and go read it. Just gonna take a short video about what looks like behind the camera. All the books on the floor, none of them are hurt. None of the books that I throw on the floor are hurt. So you don't have to worry about that if you are. We're officially halfway through. How exciting. I've been here for a while, but we're gonna keep going because my throat is starting to hurt a little bit. I'm talking too much. So our next prompt is a book from a genre you don't typically read. I have 3 books to showcase for this prompt, so let's get into it. So I have Renegades by Marissa Meyer. Yes, by Marissa Meyer as my first book for this prompt. I read this book. This is a YA sci-fi, and one thing you should know about me is I'm not really a sci-fi reader. I don't like anything sci-fi, actually. I don't like sci-fi TV shows. I don't like sci-fi movies. For whatever reason, it's just, I do not connect with that genre across all platforms at all. I read this YA sci-fi a couple of years ago when I was still in high school and absolutely loved it. I think I binged the trilogy. Did I? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Basically, the world that this book is set in is like futuristic, and it's superheroes and there's villains, and it's very cool. I've never read a book like this before. I think this deserves just so much hype also, but again, this is from a genre I don't really read. The world kind of ended, society crumbled, and out from the ashes came the Renegades. They are these humans with like superpowers. It's like superhuman abilities, and it's a bunch of different types of powers, and they kind of banded together, created the Renegades to help bring peace to their society. So the people that were making the society not so safe was the villains. So the Renegades ended up overthrowing the villains to declare peace for their society. And Nova is a young villain whose like family and friends and all that were overthrown by the Renegades, and so she holds a lot of contentment and anger and hatred for the Renegades because of what they did to her and her family. So she decides to infiltrate the Renegades to bring it down from the inside. There she meets the son of the leader of the Renegades. His name's Adrian, and she slowly starts to realize, well, maybe they're not so bad, and I think I'm starting to like this guy. It's a really fun concept. It's 3 books. It's a trilogy. They're all out, and I I just remember the way that the series ended. I was like, oh my gosh. The ending kind of leaves it open, you know, maybe there might be more books. This series has been done for a while and I haven't heard anything as of late. That I could be wrong. I could have some out of date information, but it was really good. I remember loving our storyline. It was so unique, and I feel like our author executed it perfectly. Our side characters were super funny. I remember I loved the imagery that our author provided. It's like I can close my eyes right now and just picture the world. It was so picturesque and I loved it. So our second book in this prompt is The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. I think that's how you say it. This is also like a adult sci-fi mystery type of book. Basically what this book is about is that the world ended. There was this mysterious fog that just appeared one day, and whoever got stuck in the fog, it kills instantly. So the survivors of the world ended up moving to this island that the fog does not reach, and they like sort of restarted humanity there. So there's 122 people that live on the island. It's idyllic, it's safe, no one argues with anybody, there's no crime, there's no fear. It's practically a utopia. The people who live on the island, they do not dream of anything other than the island. They're just happy to sit there and be happy and do their little chores and just live out their lives, never leaving the island, because again, the fog is still out there. They're just safe there. Until one day they found that one of their like community leaders was stabbed to death, and this shocks them because again, it's practically a utopia. No one gets mad at each other, no one yells at each other. The fact that one of their beloved community members was stabbed to death was just unfathomable and crazy to them. So they end up figuring out that this person's death triggered the island's safety defenses to start lowering. So the fog is now getting closer to the island, and soon it will swallow everyone and kill them. So they have to figure out who murdered this beloved community member in order to get the answers to stop the fog from spreading. But again, there's only 122 people on the island. No one leaves, no one comes in. So obviously one of their fellow villagers, community members, is a murderer, and they're quite literally brushing shoulders with them, and they have no idea who they are. I feel like with this book, I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 3 stars. It took a long time for us to get to the main point of the book. I feel like we were building, but nothing was quite coming of it. It took us forever to get to the point of the book, and so that kind of made myself not really fall into it as much, because I kept like thinking, isn't like a murder supposed to happen? When are we gonna get there? I did like following our characters while they were figuring out the mystery, because we as readers also don't know who murdered the person, so we were following along with them. It was all very interesting though, because I'm not going to say why, but there is a huge plot point that happens that makes the book even more interesting. So I don't want to spoil it, but that reason is also one where I was like, oh, this is such a cool concept. I do feel like overall though, because we were following so many different things and we didn't have a lot of knowledge and our characters didn't have a lot of knowledge, it was very chaotic and very messy and very, I feel like, disorganized. I did have a lot of fun theorizing, and I was very interested in the story and what was happening and who was the murderer. And again, I thought it was a very cool, very interesting concept. I just don't think it was executed to the best of its ability. Our last book for this prompt is Illuminae. I don't even know who it's by. Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This was a very popular series back in the day when I was like in high school, maybe like 2018, 2019, maybe 2020. I don't know. But this is another sci-fi book, and this one is a huge book, but fret not, because this is the way that it is formatted. It is basically like the world is ending, and so all these people go into this ship and like this spaceship, and it's really huge. They have everything that they need, but there's this virus that is slowly, it's either a virus or like an actual entity that is slowly going around and killing all these people. So having to figure out like what is doing this, who is doing this, how this is happening. And so it's called Illuminate, the Illuminate Files, because the book is written in like file format. See, you have parts where it says like briefing note, like up here. You have like transcripts, you have like emails. So it is very computerized. Everything is like written in file format, where it is either emails, security logs, interview logs. It is an insane format, very unique, because they're all written like that, and there are probably like not a lot of words on each page. It flies by really quickly, and it was very interesting, very cool, very addicting. I feel like I was very enthralled in our main characters there, because there's like a little romance subplot, and also the mystery of what is going on and what is happening. So our next prompt is a book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. I spoke on this a little bit at the very start of the book, but whenever someone asks me for a recommendation, I normally say Emily Henry or Kristen Hanna. I feel like those are very safe authors. They both write so beautifully, especially Kristen Hanna. They both have their strengths, right? And I feel like they're safe authors. They're not like anything where there's just romance and that's it. There's not like it's just a thriller and that's it. They have very mixed genres. Like Emily Henry, for instance, she's romance, but also like literary fiction and contemporary. And Kristen Hanna, she's historical fiction, but also like women's fiction and romance. And I just feel like those are safe authors where you will find at least one book of theirs that is to your liking. And so I call those safe authors. And I recommend those to literally anybody, especially because whenever someone hears, oh, you like to read? I like to read. Do you have any book recommendations? Well, what do you like to read? Do you like to read romance? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like thrillers? Do you like mysteries, fantasy? Do you like nonfiction? There's just so many books out there, so many different genres, and people are normally, they have their special interests that I call Kristen Hanna and Emily Henry safe authors, because maybe at least one of their books you'll find that you love. So the next prompt is a book that I thought I would hate but ended up loving, and that is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I thought I was going to dislike this book because I just heard a bunch of people say that it was very boring, that they didn't get it, that they didn't like it, that it was very anticlimactic. And so I had this book on my TBR for forever. I heard that people were kind of saying all that about it, so I was very hesitant, but finally one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to read it, because that interested me for a while, and I had the audiobook for it. This book follows Tova. She's an old lady, and she works at an aquarium. She has suffered a lot of loss in her life. Very recently, her husband passed away, but earlier in her life, her like 17-year-old son mysteriously died, and so she has just dealt with a bunch of grief in her life, and in order to kind of combat that loneliness, she ends up working at this aquarium, and she befriends this huge Great Pacific octopus. His name is Marcellus. Marcellus is a very smart creature, and he, funny enough, ends up just helping Tova throughout the whole book. It's a very unique, very beautifully written story. I finished the book and I was like, what the heck? This was nothing how I thought it was going to be. And that is not a bad thing. It was very character driven. If you do not like books that don't really, there's a plot, but we follow our characters more, and you are rooting for these characters so much. And Marcellus, he finds a way to just slither into your heart, and you end up just loving this octopus character. Like, he is not a person, he's an octopus, and you end up loving this octopus as a character. This book was so beautifully written. It was such a unique idea, and I loved it. I don't want to say too much about it because I do feel like it is a spoiler. I feel like it's best if you just kind of go in blind and go with the flow. Don't let anything or anybody's opinions disregard you from this book. It does feel a bit slow at points. I understand why people say that they thought that this was boring, but I absolutely love the slow pace and just following our characters through their day-to-day lives and just reading about things that wouldn't really matter to the story, but I don't know what it was. I really enjoyed this one. If you love books like that, I would give it a go. I feel like it is similar to Dear Edward in the fact that it's very domestic. You are following these characters, and like I said, you're following them, like waking up, making coffee, and I feel like it's very reminiscent to Dear Edward in that way. We are almost done. We are down to our last 2 prompts. So our second to last prompt is a book that made you cry. I have a bunch of books that make me cry, but I'd use them to answer other prompts in this tag, so I'm gonna go with To Selena with Love by Chris Perez. I'm from Texas, I'm Hispanic. You do not escape Selena Quintanilla. There was never not a time that I did not know who Selena was and her music. She has cemented her legacy as the queen of Tejano music. You do not go a day without hearing something about her, right? I mean, that's just what happens. She has a movie out. I'm sure everyone has heard about it. I'm sure everyone has seen it. If you haven't, it's called Selena. It stars J-Lo. It is what kicked off J-Lo's career. But if you do not know who Selena is, she is this Tejano singer. She kind of came into the Tejano world whenever women were unheard of in this genre of music. She took the world by storm. She was so loved. She was so beautiful. She had such a strong voice. If you have heard any of her music, you would know what I'm talking about. She is truly one of a kind, and she would have been bigger than everybody had she lived. For those of you who don't know, when Selena was on top of her game, she was unfortunately murdered by someone very close to her. I believe she was only like 21 or 22. She was very young. She had already found so much success in that time, but had she lived, she would have just blown up even more. She was about to start her crossover into English music, and so she was murdered at a time in her life where all the doors were just starting to open for her. To Selena with Love is a memoir written by her husband, Chris Perez, and it details their love story and also what happens in the days leading up to Selena's murder, the day she was murdered, and then the days after she was murdered. And it is so heartbreaking, so gut-wrenching. She passed away, I think, in 1995. I was born in 2003, but I still grew up with Selena. I feel like everyone here has grown up with Selena. It does not matter what year you were born, how old you are. Her music is timeless. She has such a timeless voice. She was such a beautiful person. And this book just cements that fact. And it was so heartbreaking, especially whenever you know the unfortunate end to her story. Believe me, I was sobbing. I was crying. I will never listen to Dreaming of You and I Could Fall in Love the same ever again after hearing her husband Chris's commentary on those songs. So our last prompt is a book that I wish I could read for the first time again, and that is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I first read this book when I was like 15 or 16, a couple of years ago. I've since read it one more time, and each time it gets better and better. This is so beautiful. It follows our main character Patroclus and his life with Achilles leading up to the Trojan War, then at the Trojan War, and it is just so beautifully written. I've never read a book where it is so lyrical. I need to calm down. By the end of this book, I was sobbing. I have passages memorized from this book. Like, I can quote you this book. Don't worry, I'm not going to. But I could. Multiple times while reading this book, it's just one of those where you have to stop and just think, oh my gosh, what did I just read? How can someone be so talented that she stringed words together that I use every single day, but somehow created this beautifully lyrical, poetic sentence? That's the way that she is. That's just how she writes this book. It is, oh my gosh, I cannot scream loud enough from the rooftops about this book. I recommend, if you have not read The Song of Achilles, this book deserves the hype. It is one of the OG book talk books, like back in 2018, 2019. And there is a reason. This book is so beautifully written. Take my word for it that it is such a good book. Please read it, and if you do, let me know how you like it. If you dislike it, keep it to yourself. No, I'm kidding. If you did not like that book, that's okay. We all have our opinions. So that is the end of the book recommendations tag. I had so much fun. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe. I have been sitting down for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just talking, and my throat hurts, my legs hurt, my back hurts. Yeah, this was super fun. This was my first sit down video. I hope y'all liked it. I hope y'all come back for more, and yeah, leave a comment down below what your current read is, what you're most excited to read from this tag. If you've read any of them, your thoughts on them. I would love to hear what y'all are thinking and y'all's thoughts on some books. Okay, I'll see you on the next one.